Chapter 11. The Golden Book reacts. Shun Long had told his father to destroy the engagement completely, which showed how dissatisfied he was with the Lin family. But what he didn't know was that Shun Fang was even more dissatisfied than him. He was burning with anger. The Lin family wanted to take advantage of him for so many years and then just come and ask for a mutual divorce. These idiots had to be dreaming. For a woman to get divorced by the man's side of the family was an extreme insult, as it deemed that woman unfit to marry. Even prostitutes had better reputations in this world than women who were engaged and then divorced before completing the marriage, unless that divorce was mutual from both sides. A divorce being mutual here doesn't refer to both families not wanting their children to marry each other, but it indicated that nothing had happened in between which would create any suspicions that the woman who had been betrothed to them had been unfaithful. Even prostitutes who sold their bodies did it for work, and the men who slept with them did it for enjoyment, but no man would ever want to marry a woman that was engaged with him and yet eyed another man secretly. That's why the Lin family went in such pains to beg Shun Fang to mutually end this engagement, or Lin Wu's reputation would greatly suffer. But they underestimated Shun Fang's fury this time. Not only did he kick them out of his estate, but in the next 2 days, word had spread throughout the entire Blue Forest city and even beyond that the Shun family would not accept Lin Wu as their daughter-in-law and that Shun Long had divorced her. Shun Long had already heard that the Lin patriarch's daughter had already been labeled as an unfaithful woman in nearly every household of Blue Forest City in the last 2 days, but frankly he didn't care. That woman's family abused their status as their in-laws to be for many years, and then they wanted to end the engagement without even giving him a proper explanation. As if Shun Long was naive enough to accept a lame half-assed excuse like, "My daughter will go cultivate in the sect, so you have to break up with her now that she decided that, but thank you for being a fat sheep that we could take advantage of for so many years." Shun Long easily saw through their lies and understood that there was definitely something else at play here. He just didn't know what yet. But one thing was for certain, his feelings for the Lin family couldn't drop any lower right now. He even suspected that the attack he had suffered half a month ago had something to do with the Lin family. He didn't have any clues back then, but now it definitely made sense when he tried to connect the dots. If he died to an assassination, the Lin family could definitely bring up the matter of mutually ending the engagement to Shun Fang, as Shun Long would have already been dead, and Shun Fang would have had no valid reason to refuse them then. The more Shun Long thought about it, the more it made sense, and his eyes turned colder. Then he muttered, "You better not have had anything to do with this Lin family, or you better watch as I play you to death." Shun Long had spent the past 3 days constantly sparring with guards, while revealing more and more of his strength. In the end he had only revealed a cultivation level of an early rank 5. He understood that Monarch's hourglass was truly a heavenly technique. As long as he didn't intentionally circulate the power inside the balls of ki that he had created and stored in his body, others couldn't tell his level of cultivation. But Shun Long also assumed that if the disparity between his level and his opponent's was too big, then no matter what, he would be seen through in the end. So to avoid such a situation, he decided to not keep his cultivation hidden any longer, the cultivation of an early rank 5 of course. After all, he wouldn't reveal his full strength for no reason. It was already miraculous that he had reached the early rank 5 in half a month. Shun Fang and Shun An already found this unbelievable. He wondered what would they think if he told them that he had already reached rank 6 peak, but in the end he decided not to. That speed of advancement was already too monstrous and he couldn't explain it, unless he divulged the existence of the Monarch's hourglass and the triangular-shaped stone. But these were his biggest secrets, and it would surely bring him endless questioning from his parents. Also, even if he tried to explain the truth to them, it was unsure whether they would believe him. So in the end he decided not to tell them about his real cultivation level yet, After all, they were already extremely satisfied with his progress so far, and he saw no harm in having a few secrets for his own. After he had revealed his new strength of an early rank 5, Shun Long could hold his own against a guard who was at the middle of rank 7 in key condensation. This was shocking to both Shun Long and the guards, as well as Shun Fang, who happened to see them sparring. That was more than 2 full minor levels above Shun Long's own. If he had used his full cultivation, Shun Long estimated that he could probably fight against a peak rank 8 or even early rank 9. For someone who has been cultivating for only 15 days to fight against a late-stage key condensation cultivator was already unheard of. But for that same someone to fight against an early rank 9 key condensation who was already almost at the peak of his grade, then even the word crazy wasn't enough anymore. After Shun Long had his fill of sparring with the guards, he told his parents that he would stay in his room again for a few days and see if he can advance his strength any further, as he also mentioned that he was planning to participate in the floating cloud sects selection test that was taking place in the Imperial Palace in 1 month. The same test that Lin Shang had talked about. Shun Long's will was to become rich and strong so others couldn't control him, and he couldn't achieve this in a place as small as the Sky Fortune Kingdom. He had already heard from Shun Fang that Sky Fortune Kingdom had more than 100 other kingdoms around it, and that's just what Shun Fang knew. Who knew how big the actual number was? Could he spend his life in a place as tiny as the Blue Forest City? Originally, Shun Long's parents didn't have any hope for him to participate in the floating cloud sects selection test that happened every 3 years, even when they had learned that their son's meridians were cured. But now that they had seen Shun Long's frightening speed of advancement, they were hoping that their son would escape this tiny place called Sky Fortune Kingdom and go cultivate in the behemoth known as the Floating Cloud Sect. Shun Long had returned to his room sitting cross-legged at the center of his bed, as he sent his spiritual strength to his spiritual space, so he would enter the triangular stone's space once again, when the Golden Book showed a reaction for the first time. Chapter 12. Absorbing Knowledge. While Shun Long was sitting peacefully in a cross-legged position atop his bed, an apocalyptic scene was taking place inside his spiritual space. The Golden Book had started vibrating inside his spiritual space, and with every passing moment, it was doing so even more intensely. Every time the Golden Book vibrated, it was also slowly discharging some kind of heavenly aura which also nourished Shun Long's spiritual strength every time it came in contact with this aura. Shun Long then noticed a rune that resembled a lock, as it slowly emerged from the cover of the Golden Book, and it suddenly expanded and binded the Golden Book, almost as if the rune was trying to seal it. The book then started struggling desperately as it was trying to rid itself from the rune. But the rune didn't let up at all, firmly wrapping itself around the Golden Book. Just as the book was about to get suppressed by the rune, a tiny fluctuation came from the triangular stone that had stayed silent all this time, and a heavenly pressure radiated from it that seemed as if it had come from the start of time. Then the stone sent a small stream of blue light straight towards the rune. The rune lock that was suppressing the Golden Book instantly released its hold as it tried to flee, but that tiny fluctuation from the triangular stone had already sealed time and space inside Shun Long's spiritual space, and the rune couldn't even move. It tried to instinctively vibrate and rid itself from the temporal restrictions that the little stone had placed around them, but before it could even do anything, the triangular-shaped stone instantly released a force that sucked the rune inside it, and then as the temporal restrictions retracted, as everything returned to normal, the previously suppressed Golden Book instantly erupted with a burst of golden light, as for the very first time, its cover instantly opened to reveal a blindingly bright white page. As soon as the white page was revealed, the book released a startling kind of force that tried to absorb Shun Long's spiritual strength inside it. A person's spiritual strength was practically their consciousness. If their consciousness was lost or destroyed, they would be practically dead. They would turn into a weed, a body without a consciousness. Shun Long tried to resist the force from the Golden Book by retracting his consciousness back to his mind. Fuck. What is this? Am I really going to become a weed after just reincarnating? He was terrified to see that his consciousness had already arrived in front of the white page, when the Golden Book instantly absorbed him. His entire spiritual strength had now left his body, which had now turned into an empty shell. Shun Long, however, was startled to see that he was not dead, but he was also shocked because he didn't have a corporeal body anymore. Not just a corporeal body, he didn't have anything aside from his spiritual strength, his consciousness and his thoughts. There was nothing in front of him, just endless white that covered everything as far as the eyes could see. All of a sudden the scene in front of him changed. A plant appeared right out of nowhere, one that he had never seen before, and yet, just by looking at it this time, a sudden influx of information appeared in his brain that told him everything about the plant. How many stem cells the plant consisted of, how the plant would react in different temperatures, what are its leaves consisted of, how many years does it take for the plant to mature, what is needed for it to mature faster, what are the ideal conditions to nurture it, what are the plant's properties and how it can be used, along with all of its special individual properties. My brain feels like it will explode any second now, Shun Long thought as he suddenly felt that needles were piercing his consciousness. Sadly, this was only the beginning of his suffering. Shun Long suddenly roared, as billions of scenes flashed through his eyes, every scene including a plant that went from a seed to its full maturation stage until it changed again to another one. Every scene made Shun Long feel that he was about to die from the pain, and he couldn't even think anymore as information was practically getting crammed in his soul. The pain was so intense that at some point Shun Long felt that it might be better if he just stopped enduring this and gave up. Then he wouldn't have to feel this pain, he thought. Although he had felt pain in the past, and although he had suffered from hunger and physical pain, by fighting, or having his underdeveloped muscles aching and stinging him after overworking himself or suffering injuries, this was a completely different type of pain. The difference in intensity and quantity couldn't even be mentioned in the same breath as anything that he may have felt in the past. If all the pain he had felt in his past 20 years could be considered as a single drop in a bucket, then the pain he was feeling right now would be much more than an ocean. And the worst part was that this was a pain coming directly from his soul. A stab in your soul was thousands of times worse than a knife stabbing your heart. This was a type of qualitative difference that couldn't even be compared in the same breath with a flesh wound. Just as Shun Long felt that he should perhaps give up and that he had already reached his limit, the triangular stone buzzed and a scene replayed itself in Shun Long's brain. That's right. It's better to suffer now and give it my all to become strong after this than give up and die and have people trample upon me in my next life and the next one after that. No matter what, I will not give up. I will rather break than bend. Let's see who is stronger, this pain or myself. Ha ha ha, come, he roared in the end while laughing, and his will was invigorated as he became clear-headed all of a sudden. This was both thanks to the little stone, replaying in his mind the scene when he swore his oaths outside of the Blue Forest, as well as to Shun Long's will to endure this crazy inhumane pain. But after a few hours, the pain was already so intense that Shun Long couldn't even speak, as his mind had finally reached a point where he just couldn't absorb more information and was already full. This wasn't a matter of whether he was willing to endure more pain, but whether his brain had any more mental capacity to absorb all this knowledge. All of a sudden Shun Long started to feel that his mind was now absorbing a strange kind of energy that made his soul bigger and stronger as his spiritual strength was improving at an unbelievable pace. Chapter 13. What's the test like? This was of course the same heavenly aura that the Golden Book was discharging earlier before it sucked him inside the white page. As Shun Long's consciousness absorbed more and more of this heavenly aura, his soul started to expand. His spiritual strength was also improving rapidly, becoming stronger and stronger by the second. This aura was immensely beneficial to a cultivator's soul and spiritual strength. 100 breaths of time had barely passed when Shun Long had already sucked in all the aura around his consciousness. Every second of it had felt like a heavenly massage on his soul, and he couldn't help but thirst for more, but that greedy feeling was instantly forgotten, and his mind met another wave of pain as soon as the blissful, heavenly massage had stopped. Now that his soul had already expanded and could absorb more information, the Golden Book didn't hold back any longer. His mind capacity had already reached a level that was more than 10 times larger than before, and his mind was once again bombarded by scenes of plants. After an unknown amount of time, the Golden Book stopped cramming Shun Long's mind with information, and he finally found a chance to catch his breath. Or so he thought. The Golden Book appeared in front of him, and a thing that horrified Shun Long happened. His mind was once again full of images along with a barrage of information just like before, but this time, it didn't involve any plants, but magical beasts. Shun Long wasn't just sweating when the second transmission of information ended, but he even felt that if he was in his body right now, he wouldn't even be able to take a breath before he sorted out all this information. Are you fucking trying to kill me? Shun Long wanted to roar at the Golden Book furiously, but when he saw that he was about to receive a third transmission, he nearly blacked out. Thankfully, the third one was actually the last and also the shortest. The information it contained was about the human body, its illnesses and more, but this didn't even take 0.1% of the information that he had first absorbed about the plants and medicines. Actually, even the magical beast information could barely reach 1% of the medicines. This is how immense the amount of information that Shun Long had first absorbed was. By the end of it, though, Shun Long was so tired mentally that as soon as the Golden Book stopped transmitting information to his mind, he instantly blacked out. When he woke up, he was so shocked that his eyes bulged out. His body was shriveled, his eye sockets were sunken in, and his hands and feet were so bony that you would be hard-pressed to find flesh no matter where you looked at. He was almost like a moving skeleton, and if he wasn't in the peak of rank 6 in ki circulation, he would have probably already died if his energy wasn't passively sustaining his body. He woke up, and with a lot of effort he managed to walk all the way to his door, his clothes hanging off from his body like they were 3 or 4 sizes bigger than what he normally wore. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a young maidservant sleeping outside his room, on the cold hard floor. Shun Long felt some pity for her and walked towards her to wake her up, when the maid just happened to open her eyes. "Ah!" she screamed as she rolled a few meters on the ground before slowly standing up, her robe now full of dirt. "Young master?" she asked stutteringly as she noticed Shun Long's previously handsome, but now shriveled face, with his cheeks practically sunken in. Shun Long frowned while watching the maid's antics, seemingly unaware of his own horrible appearance as he ordered, "Prepare for me a huge meal. I am starving." He then walked with difficulty towards the dining hall. It was already the middle of the night, but the chefs were still awake, and in less than 30 minutes they had already prepared a huge meal, which Shun Long ended up wolfing down in less than 10 minutes. The chefs then had no choice but to keep preparing more as the young master wasn't even close to being full, but they barely managed to get in the new plates of food before Shun Long had completely devoured the previous ones. In the end, it couldn't even be called a meal, but an all-you-can-eat buffet, as 6 chefs were working to satisfy the appetite of their famished young lord. Even Shun Fang and Shunan were startled by the commotion their son had caused, but as they saw his shriveled body, which was slowly regaining its original appearance as he ate more and more food, they decided to stay silent. All questions could be answered after Shun Long had filled his stomach. Shun Long hadn't even noticed that his parents had arrived in the hall and only stopped eating when he had eaten enough food for 100 people to fill their stomachs. Then Shun Fang arrived and sat down by his side as he asked, "What have you been doing in the past 25 days? What?" Shun Long couldn't believe that he had spent a whole 25 days digesting the information from the Golden Book. But when he thought about it, it made sense, especially with the amount of information that his head was filled with right now. Right now, Shun Long probably knew everything about every single medicinal ingredient that existed in this world. Although he practically hadn't tried yet, his theoretical skills in alchemy should have reached a godlike level by now, considering that alchemy was based on combining two things, controlling the medicinal ingredients and controlling the fire. Well, in reality it was much more complicated than that, but Shun Long couldn't wait to try and see if he was right about this guess he had regarding alchemy. He then answered, "I met with some problems, but it's fine now, don't worry. I even advanced a full minor level in my cultivation." Shun Long then revealed his cultivation as an early rank 6 in key condensation. He didn't know what the requirements to enter the floating cloud sect were, but he had assumed that he would need at least this much to pass the tests. Shun Fang couldn't believe that his son had already advanced so much in just 1 month, and he even thought that he too would be willing to suffer being famished for a month if would mean a full minor realm leap in his cultivation. Shun Long was also glad that he could still make it in time for the floating cloud sect test in the imperial capital. If he had slept for too long and ended up missing the entrance test that takes place every 3 years, he would have definitely regretted it. Then Shun Long turned his head to look at his father, who was sitting beside him, and asked curiously, "Right, Father, what's the floating cloud sect's test like?" Chapter 14. The Way to Advance to a Rank 7. Shun Fang looked at his son and smiled as he said, "Don't worry, according to the previous years you have 100% chance of passing." Shun Long looked at his father with an intrigued expression, but Shun Fang said, "Okay, don't worry, I'll tell you what I know tomorrow, no need to look at me like that. Actually, I had hoped that we would have already left for the imperial capital a few days ago, but since you didn't come out from your room for so long, I could only wait until you were done with your cultivation before setting off." Shun Long was once again taken aback and couldn't help but ask his father this time, "Don't we still have a few days until the test in the imperial palace? The imperial capital isn't even 1 day away from our Blue Forest city, so we don't really need to rush, do we?" Shun Fang looked at his son, who was sitting beside him and didn't know anything about the floating cloud sect, and said, "You are right, son, we don't really need to rush. Go and prepare whatever you need to take with you on this trip. You can also ask me for anything that you want. Your father will definitely help you, don't worry." Shun Long looked at his father and his eyes moistened. Since Shun Long had arrived in this world, he was certain that he would have to do everything by himself, just like he did in his previous life, without ever counting on anyone for anything. He was already used to this mindset of his and wouldn't easily change it, but his newfound parents constantly showered him with care and attention, showing him the true meaning of the word family. Shun Long's father was enraged for his sake when the Lin family had come to ask them to annul his engagement. His mother had him constantly on her mind, sending maidservants to send him food, and having them report back to her son's condition and if he had asked or needed anything else. Even a few moments ago, when the maidservant responsible of watching Shun Long's room came and informed them that the young master was now all bones, Shun Long's parents instantly rushed to the dining hall in the middle of the night, worried about their son. And when they finally confirmed that he was now recovering through eating massive amounts of meat and drinking more than a gallon of water in one go, they didn't even ask him any questions about what had happened to him. They were just glad that he was fine. To most people, this may seem how parents should act for their children, but to Shun Long, who had never felt familial love before, these actions were invaluable to him. A feeling of warmth spread inside him, as Shun Long watched his parents moving to their courtyard, while he decided to return and cultivate in his room instead. Breaking through a cultivation barrier wasn't easy, and Shun Long finally noticed the problem that was holding him back all this time, and he couldn't break through the 7th rank of key circulation. Every rank of key circulation needed Shun Long to condense 3 balls of ki for each level respectively of early, middle and peak, for a total of 9 levels in each rank according to the requirements of the Monarch's hourglass. Shun Long right now was at the peak of the 6th rank, which meant that he had already created and condensed 54 balls of ki above his head. Although it was harder to push in every single ball of ki that came after the previous one, it still shouldn't have been this hard. Yet every time he created one ball just like he had done in the previous levels, he would fail to push it inside, and its ki would eventually dissipate into thin air. But this time Shun Long decided that if the balls of ki didn't have enough power, then he would imbue even more ki inside them while creating them. And this random guess of his had left him speechless when he tested it. Shun Long noticed that the balls of ki that would previously be easily filled until they were saturated and couldn't hold any more ki inside them, were now turned into starved animals that needed more and more ki to fill themselves. Finally, after 3 hours, Shun Long had managed to condense a new full-powered ki condensation ball, and he slowly pushed it in the space above his head. Finally, after 2 more hours of bitterly trying, a 55th ball of ki had appeared in the space where the rest of his ki balls were. More than 5 hours had already passed and morning would soon arrive, but Shun Long wanted to try one more crazy thing, something that no one in the ki condensation had ever tried. I wonder if I can put even more energy in the balls of ki I had previously created and have them all reach the quality of this one, he said as he looked at the brightest ki ball he had created up until now, the 55th ball. When Shun Long had fought with the guards of the estate, he had already found out that even if the balls of ki exhausted all their energy, they wouldn't disappear. They would still remain in the place above his head, and when he entered a meditative state and circulated the Monarch's hourglass, he would just need to refill them with the ki that he absorbed from the air. Shun Long decided to try out his hypothesis in the very first ball of ki he had condensed, and he was glad to find out that his energy did actually enter the ball as it slowly made it stronger. After 3 more hours, Shun Long, exhausted, went to sleep, yet he only slept for 2 hours before his father came to wake him up. It was finally time to leave the Blue Forest City. Chapter 15. Secrets of the Floating Cloud Sect. Shun Long woke up and looked at his father and mother, who had just barged into his room. Shun Fang looked at him with a smile on his face as he asked, "Are you ready?" Shun Long understood that they were leaving, and although he didn't know why his father was in such a rush to reach the Imperial City, he didn't question him for now as he took a deep breath and said, "Actually, I need an alchemist's cauldron, not too big in size so I can carry it with me, but the higher the grade the better." Shun Fang was a bit astonished. His son hadn't even started to cultivate for a year and he already wanted to study alchemy. That's like a toddler trying to run before they can walk. Shun looked at her husband and said smilingly, "He, you can finally get rid of that old thing." As soon as Shun Fang heard her words, his eyes twitched. "Old thing? I spent more than a month refining that cauldron, you know." "Ah, forget it," he said as he personally went to fetch a bowl-sized cauldron. As soon as Shun Long's eyes met the cauldron that Shun Fang was holding in his arms, he instantly understood, although he was neither an alchemist yet nor a formation master, that this small cauldron was extraordinary. It was emitting some small fluctuations without even being activated yet, so who knew how strong the formations engraved inside it actually were? Shun Fang saw the look in his son's eyes, and with pride he puffed out his chest as he looked at his wife and gave her a smug look. Shun smiled at Shun Fang's amusing behavior and said, "Your father took nearly 2 months to refine this small cauldron and create its runic inscriptions. The formations engraved inside it are all at the peak of bronze grade 3, and they're even on par with some silver grade 1 cauldrons. However, because your father isn't a silver grade formation master yet, he couldn't perfectly control the power of some of these formations when he inscribed them, and that's why the aura of the cauldron isn't completely concealed." Although Shun had worded it like that, Shun Long could understand how precious this cauldron truly is. His father most likely couldn't bear to sell it, as it was a priceless treasure for any alchemist below the silver grade. Shun Fang was actually happy that his son wanted to practice alchemy. He was just afraid that he would have too much on his plate and that could potentially delay his cultivation. Nevertheless, he was happy to hand his most prized creation to his own son. He walked up to Shun Long and gave him the cauldron nonchalantly as he said, "Actually, you don't need to take anything else with you aside from this cauldron and some clothes. Come find me whenever you are ready to go." Then Shun Fang walked outside of Shun Long's room, with a wide grin on his face. Shunan was happy for her husband, as it was rare for him to be in such a good mood, but when she thought of her only son leaving them for what would potentially be a very long time, muffled sobbings were heard from her mouth in the end. Shun Long understood what Shunan was feeling. It was hard to watch your child leave, but he had to steel his heart and leave in order to go to higher places. He knew that he couldn't stay behind in Blue Forest City, or else he would never be able to fulfill his oaths to himself. Shun Long sorted out his thoughts, and then he put a gentle smile on his face as he walked towards his mother. "It's not like I'm leaving forever, you know. I'll return when I'm stronger in the future." Shunan hugged her son as she said, "You also have to bring me a bride the next time you return." Then she put a bright smile on her face and continued, "Hopefully someone that isn't flat-chested like that Lin girl. Also hurry up, your father is waiting for you in the carriage." Shun Long then smiled again at his mother's words, and he grabbed some spare clothes, along with the bowl-sized cauldron, and put them all in a medium-sized wooden chest. He then walked to the carriage. His father had been waiting right outside of the Shun estate's gates. He turned his head back once, to take a last look at his home, the first home he had in this world. Shun Long's handsome face then resolutely turned, as he looked forward and said to the driver, "Let's go." The horses started neighing as 10 minutes later they had already left the Blue Forest City. Shun Long and Shun Fang were chatting, when Shun Long asked, "Father, why did you insist on leaving for the Imperial City so hurriedly when we already have plenty of time ahead of us?" Shun Fang looked at his son and said, "Do you know what the floating cloud sect's test is like?" This question left Shun Long a bit stumped, who eventually shook his head. Shun Fang continued and said, "Actually, the test itself is really simple. As long as you are below 20 years of age, and at the peak of the middle level of key condensation, then you can definitely pass. You are already an early rank 6 key condensation cultivator, which means you are at the peak of the middle level, so you don't have to worry about the test. What you should be worried should be what comes after the test." "What do you mean?" Shun Long asked puzzledly. "I myself don't know too much details about the floating cloud sect, but I have heard one important thing. The more connections you make before reaching the sect, the more beneficial it will be for you. Actually, Lu Wen, Alchemist Master Lu from our Blue Forest City, will also participate in the test to enter the floating cloud sect this time. However, the test he will be taking requires someone to be at the peak of the early stages of the Earth grade and to be below 30 years of age. As for why the need to build connections before reaching the sect, even your father doesn't know that. My guess is that you will find out once you finally reach the floating cloud sect." Shun Long and Shun Fang's journey went as expected, and in just half a day, they could see it clearly in the distance. They had finally arrived at the Imperial City. Chapter 16. Inside the Imperial Palace. The outline of the Imperial City was slowly getting bigger in their eyes as the carriage was slowly getting closer and closer. After 3 more hours they had arrived in front of the gates, and Shun Long could see that the city gates and the walls were even higher than the Blue Forest City's walls. There were guards standing on the front collecting a fee from everyone who wished to enter. Each person needed to pay 1 gold coin, while each carriage had to pay an extra 10. 1 gold coin could feed a family of 3 for half a year in the Imperial City, but this was a paltry amount to a formation master like Shun Fang. The driver paid the city guards, and as soon as Shun Long's group entered the imperial city, Shun Long and Shun Fang left the carriage. Go and book us 2 large courtyards in the Imperial Inn to spend the next 2 nights, Shun Fang ordered the driver, who bowed and left to go to the best inn of the city. The Imperial Inn was under the imperial family. The prices in the inn were more than 10 times higher compared to any other inn in the Sky Fortune Kingdom, but their service and courtyards were the best in the entire kingdom. However, it wasn't just anyone that could enter the inn. Only people with status like Shun Fang and their families could spend their night here. Shun Long and Shun Fang spent their next 2 days touring the imperial capital, since it was Shun Long's first time arriving here. They tasted the best foods and wines of every well-known restaurant in the city during the day, and Shun Long cultivated during the night. His focus was on refining the already created key balls and bringing their quality on par with the 55th ball he had created. It was a process that required a lot of sweat and effort, but in these 2 nights, Shun Long had further refined 6 more balls of key. His cultivation didn't advance with this, but his strength was advancing really fast. Shun Long estimated that when he finished refining all the balls of key and entered the 7th rank of key circulation, he could probably even beat a middle stage rank 9 key cultivator. The morning came as the sun slowly rose from the east and revealed a city that was bustling since very early in the morning. The guards were on tight alert around the perimeter of the palace. Commoners and nobles alike would all have to wait outside today, as special guests from a famous sect had arrived for a selection test to choose outer disciples for their sect. Only the young people who met their listed qualifications were allowed to enter the imperial palace today. Shun Fang and Shun Long arrived in front of the entrance of the imperial palace, where a guard stopped them and said, "Unless you are participating in the selection process, entry in the imperial palace is forbidden." It looked like he had already said that line more than 100 times today. Shun Long ignored the guard and turned to face Shun Fang as he said, "Father, I'm going." Shun Fang's eyes were proud inside but also slightly red. "What are you waiting for? Just go," he said in an impatient tone that was trying to hide his embarrassment. Shun Long smiled as he turned around and walked towards the guard. Then he revealed his aura of a middle rank 6 key condensation as he ordered the guard. "I'm here for the selection test of the Floating Cloud sect, lead the way." The guard was astonished and a bit angry at the same time that a kid dared to be rude to him, an imperial guard, especially a kid with a much lower cultivation than him when he himself was at the early rank 9 of key condensation. But he couldn't do anything about it. The orders were that anyone who wished to participate in the selection process and met the requirements of the Floating Cloud sect had to be brought to the palace hall. The guard brought Shun Long inside the palace, and from there through a mass of complicated corridors, they went straight to the palace hall. On the way, Shun Long could see plenty of other guards, making it obvious that the security was very tight today. There were even a few Earth-grade guards that were holding their positions when they headed deeper inside the palace. When Shun Long and the guard finally reached the end of the corridor, the guard said in an impatient tone, "Here, at the end of this corridor is the palace hall. I am not allowed inside, so I'm returning to my post." Shun Long ignored the guard for the second time today, who felt as if he had just swallowed a fly. "How is this kid so hateful?" he thought as he turned to return to his post. Shun Long arrived at the end of the corridor and pushed open the large door in front of him. 21 young men and women were in the room in front of Shun Long. The room was decorated with many jewels and stones, golden tables and luxurious chairs, along with many couches and sofas. When Shun Long entered, all the young men and women inside turned their eyes to look at him. Most of these people seemed younger than 20 years old, but there were also a few that seemed older than 20. Shun Long then heard a familiar voice speaking to him. "Wow, little brother Shun, I didn't think that we would meet here." A smiling young man dressed in white approached Shun Long. Shun Long's blue robes and his handsome face, along with the young man dressed in white, created a scene so dazzling that made all the young ladies in the room blush. Shun Long turned around and saw Lu Wen smiling at him. Lu Wen walked towards Shun Long's side and patted his shoulder as he said, "Ha ha ha, who would believe it that in such a short amount of time you would advance so much? This is practically unbelievable." Then he whispered and asked, "Is it because of the pill that expert gave you?" Lu Wen knew that although he couldn't sense Shun Long's cultivation, he must definitely be at the 6th stage of the key condensation, or he couldn't enter the palace. In reality, Lu Wen was an arrogant person deep inside, but he had benefited a lot from the cauldron that Shun Fang had gifted him back at the Shun estate, so his opinion of the Shun family was especially good. Lu Wen's mindset was actually extremely simple. If you help me, then I treat you as a friend. But if you don't expect me to give you any face. After all, I'm a talented grade 2 alchemist. And that's why he was so warm towards Shun Long this time. Shun Long nodded at Lu Wen, and as they were both ready to find a place to sit, the voice of an unfamiliar man that was oozing hatred came from behind them. "So you are Shun Long." Chapter 17. Infuriating Words. Shun Long and Lu Wen turned around only to see a relatively handsome young man in red clothes walking towards them. This man had a frosty look in his eyes as he stared at Shun Long threateningly, and if looks alone could kill, Shun Long would have probably died once or twice by now. A young woman in a flowery dress was walking by this young man's side. Although this woman was pretty, her practically flat chest was unique in this entire room. "Master Lu, greetings to you," the young man said as he cupped his hands at Lu Wen. "Today I have some personal matters to settle with this punk, and I hope that Master Lu won't intervene. My Marquis estate will definitely not forget this favor." Lu Wen directly ignored Xiao Shitu, the second son of the Xiao Marquis, and turned to ask Shun Long, "Do you need my help, little brother?" Xiao Shitu, furious that Lu Wen had disregarded him when he himself was so polite to him, began to gnash his teeth in anger, but in the end he couldn't do anything about it. Although his father was a marquis, he couldn't do anything against a talented alchemist like Lu Wen, especially now that he was about to leave the Sky Fortune Kingdom and enter the Float NG Cloud sect. Shun Long waved his hand at Lu Wen, indicating that he doesn't need any help. Was this a joke? Why and when would he ever need of other people to take care of his business for him? Of course, Shun Long had recognized the young woman by this young man's side as Lin Wu. There wasn't any other woman he had met so far that had such a small chest. While the young man by her side was the second son of the Xiao Marquis of Sky Fortune Kingdom, Xiao Shitu. Although Shun Long hadn't met the man before, he had heard that this person was one of the two geniuses of the Xiao Marquis estate. "Ah, if you are asking for a beating, then you can't blame me," Shun Long thought, as he imitated Xiao Shitu's tone and Lin Wu's arrogant and straight posture as he first looked at her and said, "Hey small b. Oh, b. S, I almost thought that you were a man there for a second. You really did come to participate, but I heard that the Floating Cloud sect doesn't accept people below the 6th stage of key condensation," Shun Long said puzzledly. He then paused for a while as if he was pondering something, and then with a shocked expression on his face, he shakingly pointed his hand at Lin Wu and asked in a tone full of disbelief, "You don't tell me you are here to apply to become a female dog in the Floating Cloud sect? You bitch, that's too immoral." Piffed, Lu Wen couldn't help himself as he spat out a mouthful of wine that had just entered his mouth. The rest of the people inside the hall who had heard this couldn't keep a straight face and hurriedly tried to suppress their laughter, leaving behind loud muffled sounds. Most of these people already knew Xiao Shitu and didn't want to offend him over nothing, but that scene was just too comical for them. "Fuck you Shun Long, I am already an early rank 6 cultivator, you are the female dog," Lin Wu shrieked at Shun Long. Of course Shun Long could tell that Lin Wu was already an early rank 6 cultivator. To have gone from the early rank 5 straight into the early rank 6 in just a month, her tiny Lin family wasn't enough to help her do something like that. She must have definitely consumed some high-level pills, and judging from how she was walking side by side with Xiao Shitu in the hall, it wasn't hard to imagine who the person that had helped her was. Just as Xiao Shitu pointed at Shun Long and was about to curse at him, Shun Long instantly turned his eyes to look at him as he said, "Now what should I do about you, you leftover eater?" Shun Long then shook his head as he looked at Xiao Shitu with a pitiful gaze and continued, "You are obviously the son of a marquis, but you are chasing behind and trying to eat my leftovers. Ah, how pitiful. Don't you know that this young master only throws away food that's spoiled? Why would I throw it away if it was anything good? Tisk tisk tisk." Shun Long clicked his tongue as he shook his head while looking at Xiao Shitu with a face as if he was looking at a beggar. Even the most common people of Sky Fortune Kingdom knew about Shun Long shamefully divorcing Lin Wu before they completed their engagement, so saying that Xiao Shitu was chasing about his leftovers implied that he had already eaten something but it was bad inside and he ended up throwing it away, insulting both Xiao Shitu and Lin Wu in one sentence. People in the hall tried to suppress their laughter again, but this time it was even harder than before, as it came one slap in the face right after the other. "Shun Long, you fucker, shut your mouth. Everyone knows that nothing happened between you and Lin Wu." Xiao Shitu's and Lin Wu's eyes were red, unknown if it was from shame, anger, or both. Xiao Shitu couldn't hold himself back anymore as he roared, "Today you will apologize to Lin Wu on your knees in front of everyone here and admit that nothing has ever happened between you two, or I will break both your arms and legs and send you crawling back to your home. Now choose before I end up choosing for you, or you won't like the end result." Xiao Shitu then unleashed his aura of a rank 6 peak key cultivator. Oh, Shun Long's eyes instantly turned cold. He would never take threats from other people lying down like that. His oath was to become strong enough so others wouldn't be able to ever trample on him, so why would he back down when others provoke him so blatantly? Shun Long moved towards the empty space at the center of the hall. His chilly eyes looked straight at Xiao Shitu, as Shun Long said in an apathetic voice that made people's hair stand on edge, "Come and show me how you will break my arms and legs today." He then released the aura of a middle stage rank 6 key cultivator and people in the room started to feel suffocated from its density. Chapter 18. The Monarch's Domain. Shun Long unleashed his aura of a middle rank 6 key cultivator and most people in the hall instantly started to feel suffocated. The person who had it the worst was Xiao Shitu as he felt the brunt of Shun Long's aura directly. Shun Long's aura was just too pure compared to Xiao Shitu's and that created a natural form of suppression. He had refined 8 out of his current 55 key balls, which made the energy inside him even purer. But the most important thing that made his aura this terrifying was the hint of heavenly energy that he had absorbed from the Golden Book. Even the 3 people that were already in the Earth level, Lu Wen included, could sense this feeling of suppression, but they could easily resist this by circulating their ki inside them. Xiao Shitu really hated Shun Long right now, but he hated himself even more for becoming afraid after sensing his opponent's aura. When Xiao Shitu saw that his opponent was just a middle rank 6, while he was already a peak rank 6 key cultivator himself, what he felt turned into rage and humiliation. He circulated all of his ki inside his body, and burst it out of his body, forcefully removing that horrible feeling of suppression that was plaguing him. Xiao Shitu laughed as he said, "Ha ha ha, Shun Long, is that all you have? In that case prepare yourself, I will make you." In an instant, everyone and everything in the room turned still. Only the 3 early Earth rank experts could move, but obviously much slower than before, and it was obvious that they had to expend quite a bit of their energy to do so. This was a technique that had appeared in Shun Long's mind 2 days ago when he had created the 55th ball of Qi through the Monarch's hourglass. This was the first time that Shun Long was testing this technique in a real battle, and as soon as he activated it, 2 words instantly appeared in his mind. Monarch's Domain. This name was truly accurate. As soon as Shun Long activated this technique, he could feel from inside him the transparent figure of an hourglass that only he himself could see, slowly expanding and covering the entire palace hall. Inside this invisible hourglass, time obeyed Shun Long. Imagine this technique just like when Shun Long creates the figure of the Monarch's hourglass to cultivate. But this time, instead of creating Qi balls and putting him at the top part of the hourglass where he stored his energy, he actually drawed energy from his Qi balls and used it to sustain the Monarch's Domain. This technique truly was godly, especially if it could even affect Earth-rank cultivators, while he himself was only a rank 6 Qi condensation novice. However, Shun Long had just understood the huge drawback of this technique. His Qi was being sapped at an alarming rate to keep up with the consumption of the Monarch's Domain. Shun Long estimated that he could only keep the technique active for 6 breaths of time since its activation before running out of strength. Shun Long didn't waste any time as he walked in front of a terrified Xiao Shitu whose face was still frozen in a laughing state. Shun Long raised his right hand, and ignoring the terror that sprung up inside Xiao Shitu's eyes, he brought it down in full force. His right hand directly collided with Xiao Shitu's left cheek, sending him tumbling on the floor. His mouth was now flowing with blood as his left cheek and even his lips were suddenly swollen. This slap only contained Shun Long's physical strength, as he couldn't use any Qi while maintaining the Monarch's Domain, or the technique would have collapsed before he even finished slapping Xiao Shitu. Shun Long's hand stinged a bit from the force of this slap of his. Xiao Shitu must really have a thick face, he thought. Shun Long stopped circulating the Monarch's Domain and the people in the palace hall could move again, but everyone stayed silent, as if they were still under the effect of the Monarch's Domain. Such was their shock and dismay that nobody had yet recovered from their terror. The feeling of being unable to move was truly daunting. I don't like threats and I do not know how to bow my head to anyone or anything. You can't force me to do something I don't want to do, even if you were stronger than me, let alone you who is so much weaker in comparison that you were sent rolling on the floor with a single slap. The room was so silent that his voice echoed through the hall. Shun Long looked at Xiao Shitu disdainfully as he continued. Do not think for a second that I'm kind-hearted or that I won't dare to break your arms and legs just because your father is a marquis. You are simply not worthy of me putting my spot in the floating cloud sect at risk to deal with you. Shun Long's voice was placid, but firm, when his tone changed all of a sudden and abruptly became chilly as he said, however, if you dare to provoke me again, then you can only dream of getting away with just a single slap at that time. Everyone in the hall was stupefied by Shun Long's astonishing display of dominance. Even the 3 Earth-rank cultivators were unwilling to offend him after this display of power. Although they could probably beat him now, why would they offend a monster like Shun Long for someone like Xiao Shitu who they had no relationship with? Unexpectedly, the first one to react after Shun Long had finished speaking and turned away, was Lin Wu, who rushed to Xiao Shitu's side to support him. She knew that if she lost his support, there was no way she could live a good life in the floating cloud sect. All of a sudden the main doors of the palace hall opened, and an old man with black clothes along with 2 young men and 1 young woman dressed in yellow arrived at the hall. All with the same insignia on their chests. Behind them was the crown prince of the Sky Fortune Kingdom, who bowed flatteringly to the old man leading the group and said as he gestured towards the palace hall, Senior Lu, these are the young men and women from my Sky Fortune Kingdom who passed your requirements and wish to join the floating cloud sect. Nobody dared to talk in front of Senior Lu, whose gaze swept everyone inside the hall. Everyone inside the hall had stood up. Nobody dared to remain sitting in front of this senior from the floating cloud sect. Senior Lu's gaze planted itself on Lu Wen, who showed a rare smile as he took a step forward and bowed as he said, "Greetings, Uncle Cheng." Chapter 19. Connections. Senior Lu's real name was Lu Cheng, and from the looks of things he probably had a close relationship with Lu Wen, or else Lu Wen wouldn't have called him uncle. Lu Cheng walked into the hall and he patted Lu Wen's shoulder as he said, "Good kid, it's time for you to return home." Everyone around them was stunned, but the most stunned of them all were the 3 disciples that followed Lu Cheng. They didn't understand how Lu Cheng could have an acquaintance in such a backward place like the Sky Fortune Kingdom. The 3 of them were all outer disciples of the Floating Cloud sect, and as they traded some stealthy glances between them, it was the young woman who respectfully walked up and cautiously asked, "Elder Lu, you happen to know this young man from the Sky Fortune Kingdom?" Only now did the people in the hall understand that this Senior Lu was actually an elder in the Floating Cloud sect. Usually, outer court disciples didn't have the qualifications to freely speak to elders of the sect, especially like this when this woman directly asked Elder Lu about his relationship with this young man. But since they could all see that Elder Lu was feeling very happy after meeting Lu Wen, the 3 disciples couldn't help but ask. Elder Lu then proudly puffed his chest as he said to them, "Ha ha, this is my, Lu Cheng's nephew, Lu Wen." Elder Lu's words were spoken proudly, but the 3 disciples following behind him were even more shocked as this young man seemed to have a direct blood relation with Elder Lu. They quickly walked forward while cupping their hands and slightly bowing as they said, "Greetings, Senior Brother Lu." Lu Wen nodded his head at them and then said to Lu Cheng, "Uncle, this is a talented brother I am very fond of. His name is Shun Long." As Lu Wen introduced Shun Long to Elder Lu, Lu Cheng couldn't help himself but take a few more glances at the young man beside his nephew. He wasn't near the hall earlier, so he hadn't observed Shun Long's fight with Xiao Shitu, or he would have already started paying attention to him even without Lu Wen's mention. Shun Long cupped his fist as he said, "Greetings, Elder Lu." Lu Cheng laughed as he patted Shun Long's shoulder and said, "Good kid. If you need anything when you enter the sect, you can directly come find me. Since Wenair has a good relationship with you, you don't have to be so polite with me." The faces of 3 people instantly sported different expressions when Elder Lu finished speaking. Xiao Shitu and Lin Wu's faces instantly turned pale, while the Crown Prince's face had slowly turned green. The Crown Prince already knew that there was a talented alchemist named Lu Wen in Blue Forest City, but he never paid any attention to the matter. If he knew that this alchemist had a relationship with an elder of the Floating Cloud sect, he would have definitely done everything he could to build a good relationship with him. But now it was already too late for that, as Lu Wen was already leaving the Sky Fortune Kingdom. Although Lu Cheng said that Shun Long could directly come and find him if he needed anything after they entered the Floating Cloud sect, Shun Long didn't really take it to heart. He knew that Lu Cheng was only acting cordial towards him because of Lu Wen, or else there was no way for Lu Cheng, who had never even met Shun Long before, to be so warm towards him. Shun Long himself wasn't planning to count on others' help to get a good and comfortable life in the Floating Cloud sect. Nevertheless, he cupped his hands again at Elder Lu as he said, "Many thanks to Elder Lu." Elder Lu nodded and then turned his head, scanning the rest of the people in the hall almost as if he was inspecting them before saying, "To be honest with you all, your batch is average among the batches that enter the sect this year. There is no one among you who particularly stands out to me as a genius, so I guess you will all be at the bottom of the sect when you enter. But there is one important thing you need to know before entering the sect." Elder Lu's voice had been unemotional when he was talking, but it suddenly turned serious as he continued. "Those of you who decide to enter the sect, be warned. No one is allowed to leave the sect by themselves until you have reached the late stages of the Earth grade, with the only exception being that you have formally accepted a sect mission. This is an ironclad rule of the sect, and with the exception of undergoing missions, disciples aren't allowed to leave the sect. Now those of you who still wish to enter the sect, take a step forward. Remember, the floating cloud sect won't force you to join, but if you do join it, you have to follow the sect rules. The first to take a step forward was Lu Wen, who already knew the rules beforehand. Surprisingly, almost at the same time as Lu Wen, Shun Long and Xiao Shitu also took a step forward. In the end, all the disciples here took a step forward as they had all decided to join the floating cloud sect. Elder Lu faintly smiled as he nodded and said, "Good, then all of you can come outside the palace. It's time to leave." "Elder, how are we going to reach the floating cloud sect?" A young man with short spiky hair and a knife on his waist couldn't help asking the question that most people here were also pondering. After all, they had 24 people here, and most of them had some kind of luggage with them. If you also counted Elder Lu and the 3 disciples with him, they were 28 people. How were they going to travel to the floating cloud sect? Elder Lu didn't answer, but the 3 disciples in yellow robes that had come along with Elder Lu all sniggered as they said, "Country bumpkin." The young man's face reddened, but when they arrived at the palace gardens, his mouth, along with everyone else's that were in the palace hall before with him, were all wide open. A huge red bird over 20 meters, 66 feet, long was sleeping on the ground inside the palace gardens. Elder Lu ignored everyone's stunned gazes as he walked towards the huge bird and petted it gently on the head before saying, "This is our ride to the floating cloud sect. All of you, get on." Chapter 20. Shocking Secrets. "All of you, get on," Elder Lu said, and although these kids were a bit afraid of sitting on such a big beast, eventually everyone climbed on top of it. When everyone was finally on it, Elder Lu patted the bird's head as he said, "Let's go." The bird's eyes snapped open as a terrifying pressure crushed on the people inside the royal palace of the Sky Fortune Kingdom. The bird then stretched open its giant wings of a wingspan more than 45 meters, 147 feet, and as it flapped them, strong gusts of air hit the ground and blew away everyone in its perimeter that had dared to stand underneath it. Elder Lu was standing atop the bird's head as he explained to these soon-to-be disciples of his sect. "This is a red-winged condor, a rank 3 magic beast. It can even fight head-on against a heaven-grade expert, so its power is truly terrifying." The people sitting atop the condor were startled. A rank 3 magic beast. Nobody had ever seen one in the Sky Fortune Kingdom. Even if there was any, it was probably deep inside the Blue Forest if anywhere, but no one had ever seen it or at least lived to tell the tale of it. The condor didn't fly in a straight line, but instead kept flying higher and higher. These kids had never reached such an altitude before in their lives, and most of them could feel their legs trembling atop the condor's back. Elder Lu looked at these kids and said, "All of you can be considered as outer sect disciples of my floating cloud sect. Now, sir, I guess I should tell you a few things. First of all, it is only now that you kids will enter the true cultivation world. Take a look at the scenery below you." The condor had already flown up so high that every person seated on its back had a panoramic view of the scene below them. When everyone looked down, they had noticed that the place they were looking at was so big and their altitude was so high that they couldn't even spot the Sky Fortune Kingdom anymore. Elder Lu then said, "Do you see this? There are over 170 feet kingdoms down there. But what you people don't know is that these are only mortal kingdoms." This number astonished everyone from the Sky Fortune Kingdom. Their own kingdom was already so big, and they were now being told that there were more than 170 other kingdoms on par with their own Sky Fortune Kingdom. Their minds couldn't accept this shocking revelation that easily. "Elder, what do you mean by mortal kingdoms?" This time it was a short girl with an immature face and her hair fixed in a ponytail who asked this question. Elder Lu then said, "It means that these kingdoms of yours are mainly comprised of mortals who haven't even embarked on the path of cultivation. This entire continent that you think your kingdom is on is in reality just a tiny mortal island in the face of my floating cloud sect." If these people were shocked before, when they learned that there were 170 more kingdoms on this continent, then this time they were truly speechless. Even Shun Long was shocked, as his mind couldn't process yet the enormity of the floating cloud sect. Elder Lu then continued, sounding completely apathetic about it. "That's why I said that you will only now have the chance to actually enter the true cultivation world. My floating cloud sect is in charge of this island, and every 3 years we come down and search for the talented people of every kingdom, allowing them to become outer sect disciples." "Elder, may I ask, what do you mean when you say that you and GT, every 3 years? The spiky-haired kid asked again. Elder Lu then answered the question with a question of his own. "Have you ever wondered why there are so few heaven-grade experts on this island? Even your Sky Fortune Kingdom didn't have a single heaven-grade expert." Not just the spiky-haired kid, nobody there knew the answer to this question. Elder Lu seemed to obviously have expected that as he continued. Heaven-grade experts can fly, and they can also absorb the ki in the air around them when they cultivate. Earth-grade experts can absorb the ki from the earth in a certain radius around them when they cultivate, whereas cultivators in the ki condensation grade can only absorb the ki in the air that comes in direct contact with their bodies. They can't actively seek ki in the air or in the ground as the heaven or earth grade experts do. When cultivators in your island reach the heaven grade, they will notice a barrier high up in the air. This barrier is the dividing line between the mortal world and the cultivation world. Aside from your island, there are many other islands in this sea, many of them belonging to other powerful sects similar to my floating cloud sect. When cultivators from any island reach the heaven grade and fly high enough up in the sky, they can use their energy and pass through the barrier to enter the true cultivation world, where my floating cloud sect and the other sects are. Shun Long was truly stunned this time. He didn't expect that he would learn such secrets so soon after leaving the Sky Fortune Kingdom. He now understood why the crown prince of a kingdom would act so subserviently towards the members of the floating cloud sect. At the same time, Shun Long also rejoiced in his choice to leave the Sky Fortune Kingdom and enter the floating cloud sect. Shun Long had sworn to become strong enough to protect his own life, never allowing others to control him, but if he had chosen to stay in the Sky Fortune Kingdom, wouldn't that mean that he allowed the floating cloud sect to have absolute control over his life? If they could control the crown prince, then they could definitely control everyone else in the kingdom. The red-winged condor finally arrived at the place where the barrier was located in the sky. He stopped in front of it, and Elder Lu suddenly warned everyone. "Prepare yourselves." Shun Long grabbed the condor's feathers tightly as he could sense it gathering its energy. A few breaths later, the red-winged condor's wings were shining brightly with a red light as it exploded forth with an astonishing amount of speed, instantly piercing the barrier.